This is a brief overview of Futato chapter 23. This is another chapter that I think you're going to find pretty easy, and you'll be well served by having to approach sentences very literally, because that will actually help you here to mentally sort of know what's going on in the way that Hebrew expresses something. Namely, in this chapter, that's going to come into play when we hit the little section in the chapter on possession. But for now, let's start at the top here. The chapter begins by concerning itself with particles of existence and non-existence. So first, we have in 23:1, we have the word or the particle yesh, which means there is. So it's called the particle of existence, or the quasi-verbal of existence. So it's easy to translate. It's just simple vocabulary. There is na'ar, there is a boy in the house. Okay? It's just a statement of existence. That's all it is. Notice that the same particle is used even if we have plurals. Yesh, yesh. In other words, yesh itself is not going to vary in form. It's not going to get different endings whether it's singular or plural. It's just the particle, and you have to tell whether the elements are singular or plural based upon their own forms. There is not is the particle ein. So we're learning about yesh and ein. There is not. Particle of existence, particle of non-existence. Same situation. Ein, there is not na'ar, a boy, babayit, in the house. There is not a boy in the house. So, again, that's not bad English. You could probably do a little bit better with it, but that's adequate. It's sufficient. So again, whether it's singular or plural, the form will be the same. The ein itself is not inflected. It doesn't get its own set of endings. Now, to express there was in terms of past time, as Futato notes, there was in past time uses the third masculine singular and the third common plural forms of haya. So if we have haya, there was na'ar, a boy in the house. And in this case, when there's a plural, the form will change because haya is just a normal, verb lemma. It's going to take its own person, gender, and number. And here we have hayu. There were boys in the house. Again, this is very easy to translate, but he's putting this particular one in here because it sort of goes with the concepts of either something is or is not. Again, particles of existence or non-existence. So he adds his discussion of haya here. Again, I have a whole separate video on sort of summarizing all this to help you remember these things, because all of these are going to, there's going to be different variations: existence, non-existence, negated or not negated. Here with to negate this, there was not, instead of using ein for there is not. If we want to have that past time, we have to use there was not. And so here haya is going to be used with a negative. So lo haya. Terribly literally, not there was a boy in the house. Okay, well, there was not a boy in the house, or there was no boy in the house, that kind of thing. And again, the plural form of haya changes. Now down here, have or have not in Hebrew, he's talking about the concept of possession. And Hebrew expresses possession in a number of different ways, using different prepositions, using the particles yesh or ein that we just learned. Again, my advice to you is be rigidly literal, even when it doesn't seem to make much sense in English. Just sort of do it literally and kind of play it over and over in your head. And again, if you're watching again this overview and the other videos I've created, you'll know what's going on, that this is a patterned expression for having a thing, for possessing a thing. So I think we get into examples, you'll see that. So To express have in the present time, particle yesh is used with the preposition lamed. So yesh, there is la'av, to the father, and it's the father because we have comments here under the lamed. It's your definite article, which lengthens before the guttural. So there is to the father a son. Well, that's awkward English, but what it means is the father has a son. There is to the father a son. There is to me a son. Yesh li bain. There is to me a son. Well, it just means I have a son. Again, this is just the way Hebrew expresses the possession. Negatively, with ain, we have there is not to the father a son. Father doesn't have a son. There is not to me a son. I don't have a son. Okay, I think you get the idea. Now, have in past time, again, above we saw that haya was used for that. Well, it's going to be used here again, and with the preposition lamed, it's going to be getting into the concept of possession. So, there was, haya, there was to the father a son. That means, well, at one time the father had a son. There was to me a son. I had a son. Hayu, okay, plural, there were to the father sons. The father had sons at some point. And hayu, li, there were to me sons. I had sons. Again, I'm hoping you're getting the idea that it's not difficult if you just take your time, slow down, take your time, go through literally, and you'll get an idea of what's being expressed. Now, not have in past time, you need lo for that. So, not, again, this is going to be awkward, but not, no or not there was to the father a son. Again, if we took the lo off, there was to the father a son. The father, had a son, and then we negated, okay, well, the father did not have a son. So without it, go back up here, haya la'av bain. There was, at some point, to the father a son. The father had a son. And if you want to negate that, you put lo out front, and then you negate it in English. The father did not have a son. Lo haya li bain. So, not there was to me a son. Again, if we take lo off, it's there was to me a son. I had a son. If we negate it, well, I didn't have a son. Again, that's all we're doing here. It just sounds awkward when you go through it literally, but go through it literally, think about it, think about what it's actually saying, and then render that into comprehensible English. Future time, again, we have the same sorts of things going, except this time we use the imperfect of haya. Again, the imperfect, the incomplete action that we have been translating with the word will. Okay, so yihya, there will, or it will, I would say, rather than there will to the father a son. This is the to be verb, so there will be to the father a son. Again, just be very rigidly literal about it. There will be to the father a son. The father will have a son. Yehu, there will be to me sons. I will have sons. Again, just try to work through it literally. Negating it, add lo out front. So, not there will be to the father a son. Okay, the father will not have a son, so on and so forth. Now, another use of haya with lamed, this combination can be translated become here in 23.6, and that's really just going to be dictated by context. So, there was the man to a father. Well, that doesn't make any sense. There was the man to a father. Okay, when you get something like this, again, remember that haya plus lamed can mean convey the sense of become. So the man became a father. Okay, same thing down here. We have she will be the woman to a mother. Again, what does that mean? Doesn't mean anything. Well, haya, form of haya, just happens to be in the imperfect, plus lamed, conveys the sense of become. So the woman will be or will become a mother. Another use of ain. Ain is used to negate predicate participles. So it negates the participle that doesn't have the article. Again, that's easy enough. You can read through that. Ain can have pronoun suffixes rather than independent personal pronouns. So we have here ain with a suffix. So there is not you walking. Sounds really awkward. There is not you walking. But you would put that in English. You are not walking. So ain, again, will take that suffix and still negate the participle. You are not walking. Again, here's an example of what ain looks like with the suffixes, and that's your chapter. You hit the vocabulary, and of course the exercises are going to be separate videos. So I'm hoping, again, just take your time with this chapter. I think, once through, and you take my advice to really take your time to be literal and then put it into comprehensible English, I think you'll do just fine with this chapter. So this is the end of the overview for Futato chapter 23.